Selecting Kamala was the very first decision I made when I became our nominee. And it was the best decision I made my whole career.
When Kamala Harris is president, every day will begin with you.
Someone who sees you and hears you and will get up every single day and fight for you. The next president of the United States of America, Kamala Harris.
There you just heard from 3 American presidents, all giving their full-throated endorsement of Kamala Harris. And as we were just talking about with Katie, Harris is set to officially accept the Democratic nomination tonight. My next guest is the author of a widely read biography about Kamala Harris and has covered her career since the early 90s when she was beginning her career as a prosecutor. Dan Morain is the author of Kamala's Way in American Life. Thanks for coming on, sir.
Of course.
So you've been following Kamala Harris from the start of her career. You followed her rise from a district attorney in Alameda County to elected office in San Francisco and then California. Did you ever expect to see her contend for the presidency?
Well, certainly when she was running for California Attorney General in 2010. So that was her first statewide race. You know, it didn't really matter what I thought, but clearly the smart people in the Republican Party viewed her as a rising star. And so a national organization, Karl Rove, who was one of George W. Bush's, he was Bush's main political advisor, spent $1.3 million on an ad attack against Kamala Harris, back when $1.3 million really meant something, and trying to stop her from winning. And then national Republicans were all in on the race on behalf of her Republican supporter and against her, because they saw her as a rising star. If she won statewide the first time, she was going to win a second time and a third time, and then she'd be running for, vice president or president. So sure, they thought that she was on the rise, and I could see it. She's a very charismatic politician. Whether you agree with her politics or not, she's very good at what she does.
I want to play you a bit of tape from what Michelle Obama said about Kamala the other night from the stage in Chicago at the DNC, and then I'll get you to react on the other side. Let's have a listen.
Sure.
My girl, Kamala Harris, is more than ready for this moment. She is one of the most qualified people ever to seek the office of the presidency.
So you've watched Kamala for 30 years. Do you agree with that assessment? Is she ready for the top job?
Well, you never know until they get there, really. But clearly, Mrs. Obama is correct. I mean, this is a woman who started out as a courtroom prosecutor in her 20s, ran for district attorney in San Francisco in elective office in 2003, so basically 20 years ago. Became California Attorney General, and the California Attorney General oversees a Department of Justice that's second in size only to the U.S. Justice Department. It's a huge agency with all kinds of deputies. And then she became U.S. Senator and Vice President. I mean, that's a pretty good resume to become president. So clearly she got there, of course, every politician has people who help her along the way, but she got there because she is a very skilled politician.
Kamala's time as vice president was a bit rocky. She had, a relatively high turnover, especially in the early days. She sort of faltered in television interviews. She seemed a bit tentative during her public appearances, and for a while she kind of faded into the background, right? We weren't hearing much about her. But in just a few short weeks, there's been this major about face. The Democratic Party has closed ranks. They've really rallied around her. What do you think's changed?
Well, I think you're right. In her first month, she had a rocky time, without a doubt. She had staff she wasn't familiar with. They weren't familiar with her. She was given tough assignments. She stumbled. But that was 2021. And I think behind the scenes, she was a different person. I think she became she and President Biden became very close. I think there was a real mentor-mentee relationship there. I think she learned a lot from President Biden. And when he decided that he was going to step aside, first of all, she had been an incredibly loyal vice president, defending him to the hilt when other people were demanding that he step aside. And she was loyal for the entire term. And he's a loyal guy too. And I think he, in part, was repaying the loyalty by endorsing her. Once President Biden endorsed her, the die was cast. She got the money that Biden and Harris had raised, which was about $90 million. So anybody who was going to challenge her was starting at a real disadvantage. And then she quickly locked up a bunch of endorsements of people who clearly wanted to be president, but understood that it was going to be really difficult to run against Kamala Harris.
Yeah, she really skillfully locked up the nomination in such a short period of time. I mean, the Republicans have kind of struggled really to find and land on an attack line, but I think they have at this point. And basically it's saying that Kamala is too liberal. Maybe even worse, she's a San Francisco liberal. You might have seen Donald Trump even posted a fake photo online of her addressing a group of communists, a not so subtle suggestion that she's a far left candidate. What's your take? Is she a leftist or a centrist? What does her track record tell us about her ideology?
Well, of course, Republicans are going to attack her as a San Francisco liberal. I grew up down the peninsula from San Francisco. I go to San Francisco all the time. It's a great city, first of all. Second of all, most important, yeah, she's left of center without a doubt. She's grew up in Oakland, Berkeley. Parents are academics, and she rose in San Francisco politics, which is a liberal city. But she's mainstream Democrat, and the notion that she's some radical is just silly. I mean, when she ran for district attorney in 2003, she was endorsed by the main paper in San Francisco, the San Francisco Chronicle. And the headline was Harris, for law and order. She was running as the law and order candidate for district attorney. And sure, she had some progressive views about criminal justice, like maybe we ought to divert young people from crime before they commit crimes. I don't know. I think that's pretty smart. So, I mean, I think she is a mainstream Democrat. She's certainly no radical, not a democratic socialist. She's nowhere near to the left of where Bernie Sanders is or Elizabeth Warren, it's a little more liberal. Members of the United States Senate. She's mainstream.
You said in an interview with ABC just after Biden dropped out that it might be kind of an uphill battle for Kamala. I think you said, quote, "I'm pretty sure Trump would win if the two squared off." Do you still feel that way 74 days out? Do you still think it will be hard for her to seal the deal with the electorate?
Well, I think she is, I thought then, I still think she is the underdog. I think if the election were held today, it's a toss-up who would win. When Biden first pulled out, I think Trump was ahead. So polls probably have narrowed. She'll get a bounce from this convention. But the decision's going to be made in the next 70 days. This is going to be a real barn burner. It's going to be, this is going to be a really tough race. We're going to start we're already hearing in swing states some of the attacks against Kamala Harris, and the Democrats will attack Trump. It's going to be a rough tumble campaign. She's been an underdog before and she's won. Who knows how this is going to turn out? I certainly don't.
One of the biggest moments of her political career will be tonight in Chicago, of course, as she addresses delegates. What are you expecting to hear from her?
Well, she's got to introduce herself to American voters. She'll probably talk about her mother, I have little doubt that she'll mention her mother. I don't have any, inside line into what the speech is going to say, but she almost always talks about her mother in important terms at times in her life. I'm sure she'll talk about her time as a prosecutor. I'm sure she'll go out of her way to acknowledge President Biden. But she's got to introduce herself. She's got to tell America who she is, why she wants this job, why she's qualified for this job.
Thank you so much, Dan Morain, author of Kamala's Way in American Life. Appreciate you coming on, sir.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.